Hello, Math 133 students. I've been asked to help with this question, which is 5.3, number 13 in the study plan or the textbook if you open it up. And of course, where it is in your homework varies depending on the assignment. So I'm going to click over here to question help, and I'm going to click on view an example. So for our example, about 14% of the population of a large country is computer illiterate. If two people are randomly selected, what is the probability that both are computer illiterate? What is the probability that at least one is computer illiterate? Okay, so let me pull this up. So we want to know, for starters, the probability that both are computer illiterate. Now, the key to this problem is the word both. That word right there is kind of denoting something to us, namely that we have two people, for starters, and we want to know the probability that both of them are computer literate. And both means both the first person and the second person are computer literate. So let's just keep this in mind up here. For one person selected at random, when you're selecting one person at random, the probability of computer illiterate is equal to 0.14. So by definition, the probability of not computer literate for one person would be 1 minus 0.14, which would be 0.86. And I just realized I messed that up. There we go. So, but that's only when you're selecting one person at random. Okay? So now we're going to select two people. But when you're talking about two people, it's going to have to involve the first person and the second person, which means there's a hidden and in here, because you want the probability that the first person is computer illiterate and the second person is computer illiterate. So if you want both people computer illiterate, what that means is that you want the first person and the second person. So probably first person is computer illiterate and that's the key, the second person is computer illiterate. Okay, well there's a hidden and in here, which we remember from the notes is going to happen to us a lot because the word and kind of gets assumed a lot in the English language. So let me go back to our rules list. So if I want one thing and another, then that would be the multiplication rule. Now we have 3 different multiplication rules, but at this point we're talking about the multiplication rule for independent events, number 4, because we have two people and whether one person is computer illiterate does not have any effect on the next person as long as the people are random. So this is using rule number 4. So we would say that's the probability the first person is computer illiterate multiplied by the probability the second person is computer illiterate. And you can make a little note over here using rule number 2, right? So you're using probability rule number 2, the multiplication rule for independent events. All right, well, up above, we already determined what the probability of computer illiterate was. It's 0.14. So this is 0.14 times 0.14, and I would just need a computer to figure that out. So that would be 0.14 squared, or 0.14 times 0.14, and I get 0.0196. And that's my answer right there for part A. I'm just going to give it a little pink highlight. All right, so now we get to the second problem. Oh, first let's go back and check. So I click continue through this problem. There we go, continue. And sure enough, it'll lead us to the same answer that I got to. There it is, 0.0196 right there. So now we need to talk about at least. Well, at least is a little bit complicated. So the thing about at least 1, and I have it right here with this rule number 6. When you want the probability of at least 1, you want 1 minus the probability of none of those things. But remember, you're talking about two different people. So you have two people, and you want the probability that neither one of them is computer illiterate. So let me write that up. So I want the probability of at least one of the two people is computer illiterate. Well, according to rule number 6, that's 1 minus the probability that none, or neither if you want, because there's only 2 of them, are computer illiterate. So that's rule number 6. Rule number 6, right? Okay, well that would be equal to 1 minus. All right, now I need the probability that the first person, is not computer illiterate, and the second person is not computer illiterate. Okay, well, there's that and again, right? If you're going to get neither one of them is computer illiterate, that's the same thing as the first one's not computer illiterate and the second one's not computer illiterate, which means that you need to use the multiplication rule again. So you're going to have to do 1 minus, and then you need the probability that the first person is not computer illiterate multiplied by the probability the second person is not computer literate. Because you're using rule number 2 again. You're using the multiplication rule. Let me go back and double check the numbers. Oops, it's not rule number 2. I'm so sorry. It's rule number 4. So we're using rule number 4. Oops, and we were using rule number 4 up here as well. So this is rule number 4, the multiplication rule that we're using. Okay, so that would be 1 minus. Now the probability that a person is not computer illiterate, we already found up here, right? Any one person not being computer literate is 0.86. So I'm going to take 1 minus. The first person not being computer literate is 0.86. And then I multiply it by the second person not being computer literate, which is 0.86. Now, the order of operations, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, PEMDAS, says that multiplication comes before subtraction. So you actually have to find 0.86 squared. So 0.86 squared. And we get 0.7396, excuse me. And then take 1 minus 0.7396. And that will be our answer. Let me double check that. Yep, 2604. And there's our final result. Right? Now don't forget that you have a powerful enough calculator that you can actually type it 1 minus parentheses 0.86 times another parentheses 0.86, and it will actually find it all at once for you. You don't have to do it in sections like I did here. All right, I hope that helps.